What's up guys, in today's video I'm going to show you the difference in focal length between 200mm, working our way down all the way to the 16, which we're going to start with, which is currently on the camera here. This is the Sony 16-35 G Master lens. So I'm going to stand over here and we'll get cracking. So lens number one is the 16mm, as you can see here, and what you need to understand about using different lenses in different scenarios is obviously they open up new capabilities and options for you. So I tend to use the 16mm if I was doing more run and gun style, sort of behind the scenes or like mini documentary stuff. One, because if I'm using it on the FX6, wider lens, more stability, and the same applies for the 3. Two, a lot of the time you're in confined spaces, so you do want that range. And other than that, I just think it looks really nice. Before I had the 16, I was just running around with the Sigma 24-70. So the widest I could possibly get was 24mm, which you're gonna see now. Similar to the 16, it is great, but it isn't as wide. And you'll see what the difference looks like with the picture here. We're now at 24. So now, as you can see, this lens is at 24mm, and the difference isn't massive, but what you're seeing is you're not getting that much additional information into the shot. It's cropped in quite a lot, and for me, I shoot a lot of things in landscape and then try and cut portrait videos out of it for social media. So a 24, while it is good, can be quite restricting when you then go to turn your long form into short form if it is more sort of run and gun style. I'm not saying that applies for everyone. If you've got more time to set up your shots, you could probably plan in advance, but for me, a lot of the work I do is very reactive, so that's why I would prefer to use a 16mm over a 24, but you can get different options. What we're gonna go to next is go to 35. So what you're seeing on the screen now is the 35mm lens. So we've gone 16, we've gone 24, now this is 35. And what I'll need to do after this is change the lens. When you would use a 35, for me personally, well, they say that 16-35 is the most sort of cinematic lens. It's like cool, but we're not cinematographers, we're just freelance creators. What I would say, however, is 35, in my opinion, from my use, has been a really, really good focal distance or like range to do photos at. For me, I've never really had much use using a 35 for video. I would just go, as I say, 16, 24, quite wide, and then I would just punch into a 50 for more like detail shots. So I don't typically use 35. What we will go to next is the 50mm. And for the 50mm, we are gonna go with the G Master, just so you can see the quality of that lens. And then when we step up above 50mm, we're gonna go to the Sigma, and then swap to the G Master. So here we go. Okay, so the lens that you are now seeing on the camera is the Sony G Master 50mm. The best thing about this, in my opinion, is the fact it goes down to 1.4. I believe you can get a 1.2. This is one of my favorite lenses I've ever used for photography, like flat out. That paired up with the lens I'm currently filming this on, which is the G Master 24. These two lenses for photography are unrivaled in my opinion, but for a video, if I was to use a 50, normally it's for like close-up detail shots. I do a lot of sports videography, so I would put the camera up into 100 frames a second because sometimes the light indoors isn't so good, but having a prime at 50 means I can get the aperture way down and keep some of the quality because I don't have to take the ISO right up. Yes, on an FX3 and FX6 you have that dual base ISO, but I do still believe that if you can just stay at 800 to like 1200, the quality of the image you're gonna get is so good, and having that 1.4 allows you to do that. So as I say, this is the 50mm. I'm now gonna swap it over to the Sigma 24-70. The next focal distance or focal range we're gonna go up to is, we'll go to 70, and then from 70, we'll go up from there. So the lens that you are now seeing on the camera is that 24-70 Sigma art lens. This was actually the first lens I ever got, and I would recommend for anyone sort of embarking on their creative journey that's got minimal kit, get the Sigma 24-70 lens. It is such a good lens. Obviously it doesn't go down below 2.8 aperture, but for the most of you, like, you don't need that. You just need a versatile lens that's got variety of focal lengths that you can get down to 2.8, because 2.8 on aperture is still really good. You can shoot from 24 to 70, and then also if you can put your camera into APS-C mode, which I'll do another video on, I do that a lot of the time for photos, you can then 1.5 times 70, so whatever the maths is on that is really good. So another thing I would say or mention about 70mm is this is, in my opinion, potentially where you'd start getting more of like a edgy or cinematic sort of look. You're going to get a lot of separation, or you're going to begin to start getting more separation between the foreground and the background, or the subject and the background, so it's going to stand out a little bit more. With a wider lens, often you find that the image can look flatter, but in my experience, when you go to 70 and above, that's when you can really start getting some standout shots. So what we're going to do now, we're going to switch to this bad boy, which is the 70 to 200 G Master, still f2.8, and we are going to go next to 100, then 150, and then 200. So that's millimeters, so 200 mil, 150 mil, 100 mil. So let's crack on with that. Something worth noting here that you can still see is I've put the lens on the end. It's not supported right now. Whenever I use a tripod with the 70 to 200, I would suggest you mount the camera from the base of the lens so it's not putting too much pressure on the front of the camera body. Slide it in with a quick release. Right, so hopefully that makes sense as to why you would do that. Obviously, if you've got a camera body and then a shitload of stress on the front of it, you could potentially damage the camera, it's like the body itself, but I've never done it, but I don't want to do it. So the image you are now seeing is 100mm on the Sony G Master 70 to 200. Boom. And as you can see, what we are beginning to get, if I was to move forward a little bit, you're getting more separation between me, the subject, and the background, and you can obviously angle this in loads of different ways to make the shot look really, really good. The only thing I would say at the moment is obviously I've set this up to show you all the different focal lengths. So the shot you're seeing right now isn't necessarily the best shot that we could do, but you can do some really, really, really eye-catching, striking shots with this lens. And it's probably one of my favorite lenses. It goes 50mm, 70 to 200, 24mm, I would say. So one more time, this is the 100mm, 70 to 200. I'm going to zoom it in now to 150. Okay, so now we are at just over 135. So the markings on the 70 to 200, it goes 100, 135, 200. So I've gone just over 135. I'm going to imagine this is somewhere between 140 and 150. So again, you can see it's just a much tighter frame. The quality on the 70 to 200mm lens is absolutely incredible. They do have the difference where they've got the Mark 1, the Mark 2. The lens I'm using is the Mark 1. The main difference between Mark 1 and Mark 2, in my understanding, is Mark II is lighter, and apparently the autofocus on the eye tracking is slightly faster on the Mark II, but like so marginal. And when you get to that point, you're spending an extra £1,000 just to maybe have some faster autofocus. It doesn't really matter. So this is about 140 to 150mm on the 70 to 200. And now we're gonna go all the way in to a 200mm. This is gonna be very humbling when I watch this back and I can see everything in all my pores and my face. Okay, so we are now on 200mm. And if you go all the way back to the beginning of the video where I was on the 16, I'm not saying you're ever really gonna go walking around shooting a video at 200mm in this exact setting, but you can now really see the difference that the lens makes in the production. So what I would say is, when I was getting into this, I didn't understand the power of focal lengths. And I just thought like, oh yeah, I'll have this lens, it'll be cool. But it was a massive learning for me, was understanding when to use what focal length and what emotion that would almost like provoke. So if you're wanting to make something like really intense, moody, almost really story-centric, you could go wide and then B-cam, punch in, longer focal length, more separation from the background, and that's dramatic. Whereas at the beginning, I just didn't really understand that. So hopefully in this video, the fact that you've been able to see the impact of all these different focal lengths will help. What I would say is, for most of us, the main focal length that you'll need to range between is gonna be 24 to say 70. I know I've suggested a 16mm lens, I love it, but it's so expensive for what you get. I would say you could get a Sigma 24-70 for £1,000, whereas I believe the Sony 16-35 is about £2,500, and you're then not getting that additional range that you have with the 24-70. So if I was in your position right now, or maybe I was looking for a first camera setup, because I know I was watching these videos when I was looking into investing in my camera setups, I would get myself the Sony a7 IV, the camera body. I've done a few videos on this now. I think it is the best hybrid shooting body. And then I would get myself a 24-70mm Sigma lens, and that'll probably bring you in total around £3,500, as opposed to spending fucking £2,500 on just the lens alone. So that's probably the most highly effective package that you could run with. As always, if you found this video helpful or you have any questions on the lenses, I'll run through them one more time for you. Sigma 24-70, no aperture ring. They have got a Mark II out that has an aperture ring on, but it's unnecessary. The 16-35mm Sony G Master, that's f2.8, that's got an aperture ring. The prime Sony 50mm all the way down to an f1.4 aperture. Absolutely incredible lens, I love it. The lens I'm shooting this video on right now, the Sony 24 G Master. And then lastly, as you can see here, the 70-200 mounted onto the tripod with the lens itself. But you can see these two quick releases on the underside of the camera and the lens. So if you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I'll get back to them in a bit. Forgot to add there, if you want to work with me at the studio, click the first link in the description and I'll be in touch. And if you want any help with anything to do with media, personal branding, you name it, online, just drop me a DM on Instagram and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Anyway, see you in the next one.